Hello again, everyone. It's great seeing you once again, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather, 19th day of December 2020. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, hosting today's show once again. Up first, how's this weather graphic? Interior there, Upper Yukon Valley, Koyukuk Valley, up across the Brooks Range, eastern North Slope, is under the influence of a wind chill advisory for tonight until 6 a.m. Sunday morning for wind chills 40 to 50, maybe 55 degrees below zero there again through tonight. Otherwise, hard to see, but you go down toward, the Anchorage area, there's a winter weather advisory for snow until early this evening, another couple hours, ends early Saturday evening should end. Total 5 to 8 inches of snow total across the Anchorage area, with lesser amounts down south toward southern Kenai Peninsula, where it's already cleared out at Homer and Soldovia. Clearing skies, definitely precipitation ending there. And that's it for the watches, warnings, advisories for elsewhere around the state. Looking at the satellite imagery here, you can see low pressure moving kind of east-northeastward, and that pushed the front in across the southeast coast there, kind of dragging across the southern panhandle, and that allowed heavier rainfall amounts to occur down in that area with a slower movement there of anywhere from 1 to 2 inches, and lighter amounts up to the north. And then the clouds extending back across the North Gulf Coast into the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, that brought the 5 to 8 inches of snow to the greater Anchorage area today, late last night, and throughout the day today. Also, Kenai Peninsula, and pretty gusty winds, gusts 45 miles an hour at Seward in the early afternoon, and that dropped the visibility in the blowing snow down to about a quarter mile there. So it was a pretty dicey drive on the Seward Highway, especially south of Moose Pass, heading down toward the Seward area. And that should improve, though, here this evening, and definitely overnight into tomorrow. You can see drier conditions, clearing skies there around Kodiak, and dry up into the southwest interior. That's a little bit of ridging there taking place. Now I'll be moving in slowly to Cook Inlet, tapering the snow off overnight tonight as it persists in the Copper River Basin. Otherwise, weak low there just west of Cape Newenham, producing some snow shower activity, light amounts of precipitation, showers, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, in toward Adak and Atka, tapering off toward Shemya. And on the edge there, you can see the southwest corner, you can see the cirrus shield with the next system that's going to be bringing a pattern change to just about all of Alaska here, starting late Monday and into the middle of next week. More of a warmer Chinook type wind for southern Alaska, probably even up into the interior as well. But anyway, today we had that front moving into the Panhandle, and again the heaviest rainfall amounts over the southern areas, where Ketchikan picked up about 1.5 inches in the last 12 hours. Other areas there had heavier amounts in the more mountainous terrain with the upslope effect there. Otherwise, northern Panhandle, let's see, Petersburg at about 2/3 of an inch. Central southeast coast there, Yakutat about 4/10 of an inch. And then again, Anchorage area, northern Cook Inlet, 5 to 8 inches snow falling into the northern Kenai Peninsula. And lesser amounts in Manuscus, Susitna Valley. And it's basically dry with maybe some flurries or very light snow showers, Kuskokwim Valley, western Alaska Range area, and along the southwest coast there. Rain and snow showers along the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Basically dry, isolated showers though, Adak and Atka, but not bad, winds light. And for tonight, you can see first front comes up, pushes Rain and snow, warmer temperatures into the western Aleutians, eventually the central. It could start out as snow at AKwx and then start to mix over with the southerly winds late tonight, but whatever falls will be pretty light, and precipitation probably won't get in there until toward morning, maybe give or take an hour or two. Otherwise, that low just about on top of King Salmon, all the precipitation is along and off the coast there over the southeast bearing for the Pribilofs. Could see some light snow, light winds, maybe some patchy fog into Bristol Bay and possibly, Togiak Bay, Dillingham, into the Kuskokwim Bay area. But western interior dry, central interior dry, lingering snow showers, but on the decrease, northern Cook Inlet, Madawaska-Susitna Valley, periods of snow continue, Copper River Basin, and rain and snow, southwest flow along the southwest coast there into the Panhandle, and areas of snow, light snow, and areas of fog there for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. And looking at tomorrow's forecast for Sunday, still enough upper level troughiness over southern Alaska there to keep mostly cloudy skies and a risk of some scattered snow showers. Definitely lighter than what we saw today for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula areas, and Madawaska-Susitna Valley. Could be a little clearing, definitely clearing Kodiak Island, that northwest flow there, southern Cook Inlet, with some snow shower activity hung up along the Aleutian Range. Western Alaska rain, some light snow showers. Otherwise, basically dry for the northern interior there. Maybe a flurry on the western Arctic coast, and then that weather system pushing wind and rain into the eastern Aleutians. Warmer temperatures again, and winds and milder temperatures pushing into the Alaska Peninsula in the afternoon. But looks like precipitation will hold off there until tomorrow night. And southwest flow keeps a wet weather pattern going over the southeast coast and also the North Gulf Coast. Taking a look at the Monday outlook, we've got definitely a change coming in. You can see a strong southeast to south flow there, tight pressure gradient along the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay, slipping into Kodiak Island. Heavy wind and rain associated with that with warming temperatures. But looks like it'll start out as snow and blowing snow along the southwest coast, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, up to St. Lawrence Island. And then areas of snow pushing into Cook Inlet, kind of be bucking the increasing east and southeast winds, downsloping conditions. So western Cook Inlet, don't expect too much. Could be a little bit of snow to start, and dry up over the eastern and northern interior with clearing, and not too bad for the Panhandle. Outlook for low temperatures for Sunday, tomorrow morning, well below zero north and west of the Alaska Range, and single numbers to teens south of the mountains, and mostly in the 30s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, below zero for the areas, again, north and west of the Alaska Range to the Arctic coast, 35 to 40 for the southeast coast, and 15 to 20 Susitna Valley. In toward Homer, though, about 30, mid-30s Kodiak Island, and near 40 in the central Aleutians. Pribilofs right at the freeze point for your high. And then the lows on Monday morning, still below zero, anywhere from 25 to 35, maybe 40 below over the Yukon Flats, North Slope areas. And chilly once more for south central Alaska, south of the Alaska Range, a little below zero Copper River Basin, and mid-20s to lower 30s for the Panhandle. About the same, lower to mid-30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. Highs for Monday afternoon, 30s to near 40 for the southeast coast, with the 40s down south. Bristol Bay with increasing mild southerly flow. Highs pushing up in the lower 40s, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, near 40 southern Kenai Peninsula, mid-20s in the Anchorage area to upper teens Susitna Valley, below zero north of the Alaska Range all the way to the eastern Arctic coast. And about mid-teens for St. Lawrence Island, upper 30s for the Pribilofs.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic Sunday morning, marginal VFR, North Slope, Arctic coast, and then some VFR from the Brooks Range and into the northern Yukon Flats area, and then over the western interior down to about Kuskokwim Bay. And marginal VFR along the coast there from Cape Romanzoff, say, to Nunivak Island. In fact, all of the eastern Bering Sea, the Alaska Peninsula, Fox Islands, some VFR ahead of the next system pushing into the AKwx area. And then IFR, Bristol Bay, up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley and along the western Alaska Range. VFR, though, slowly becoming VFR, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, and possibly the Susitna Valley, and IFR, Copper River Basin. Talkeeton is right up into the greater Fairbanks area and actually north there across the White Mountains. Yakutat, IFR, Panhandle Marginal. Marginal VFR with some increasing VFR for the southeast coast tomorrow and lingering IFR over toward the border. And eastern interior, basically marginal VFR, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, with some areas of IFR there along the east central Alaska range and up along and north of the Yukon River there, up toward the Porcupine River, north or from Eagle northward. And then some marginal VFR, northern Bering Sea, Yukon Delta, and the lower Yukon River Valley. And then IFR there, moving into the Fox Islands of that next frontal system, and still south of the Pribilofs, but a break there coming into the central Aleutians, back to marginal for the western areas. And for the Monday morning outlook, we've got some marginal VFR. Not too bad from the North Slope Arctic coast, kind of marginal there from Point Lay over toward Dead Horse or Lake Talk, somewhere in there. But then back to VFR for the eastern Boulevard Sea coast. Marginal along the Brooks Range, marginal VFR central interior, on down, cutting across the eastern Matanuska Valley, Copper River Basin, northern Prince William Sound, and then marginal with some IFR for the southeast coast. IFR on the increase, slipping up to southwest Kodiak Island and along the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. Also from the southwest coast, across the north central Bering Sea, back down toward the western Aleutians. For the afternoon on Monday, a lot of IFR now building to the southwest there, banking up along the coast, spilling inland, as you can see, right up western Cook Inlet along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. IFR solidly entrenched into Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, right up the southwest coast there to St. Lawrence Island, then kind of a swath back around into the central Aleutians. VFR north of the Alaska Range, Brooks Range VFR, and most of the North Slope VFR, central eastern Arctic coast marginal, and the coastal areas of the Panhandle VFR. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR, trending toward VFR throughout the day, and Adigan as well, probably in the morning. Not too bad, actually. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR to VFR, and call that trend for rainy. Actually, got that reversed. Should be marginal VFR to VFR, but it could go either way, so that probably holds as well. And for windy, marginal VFR at times, if not mostly. And Isabel looks IFR throughout the day. And Mentasta, though, go back to marginal. And Tanita, marginal VFR at times through the afternoon. And Portage, same forecast, marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, starting out IFR possibly early and then becoming marginal basically for the entire day. Freezing levels, not much here on the chart with the jet stream kind of down to the south, but we'll start seeing warmer air out west there with it turning more southerly ahead of the next system, but not by tomorrow morning. And 2,000 feet down south of the Dixon entrance. Icing with the next system coming in by tomorrow afternoon, mid to late afternoon, we should see some moderate or considerable moderate rime icing moving into Unimak Island, exiting the central Aleutians there. And also some icing possibilities of the considerable moderate variety there all over the northern Panhandle. Otherwise, just a risk there over the Yukon River there toward Eagle. And for the jet stream, again, south of the Panhandle, but bulging up into the east central Aleutians there. You can see 125 and 135 knots and 9,000 feet, increasing winds with that system coming in from the west or into the western Aleutians. And then 65 knots southwesterlies just north of the Panhandle. And at 3,000 feet, again, an increase in the winds with the Aleutian storm. And turbulence-wise, look for moderate chop, Alaska Peninsula to Adak and Atka and over Kodiak Island, but that's going to be improving.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or GINA, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Well, Dave, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting us again.
Sure thing. And today we want to talk about identifying burn scars. That would be the burned up area after a wildfire when the flames and the smoke are gone. We can see it if you drive by it on the roadway, of course, but from satellite, we can also identify those places on the land, right?
You know it. You know that expression, ouch, that's going to leave a mark?
Yeah.
After you bang your knee getting out of the car.
Oh yeah.
Well, the ouch, it's going to leave a mark, that also applies to the landscape. Whenever a wildfire ravages through, it's going to leave a mark on the landscape. after a wildfire burns out, this is called a burn scar.
Okay.
And you can ask yourself, well, that's interesting. We can see a burn scar from space. Then the question is, well, why does that matter?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, fire's over.
Right, the fire is over. We don't need to worry about this anymore. It turns out you kind of do, because burn scars are important. There's this old rule of thumb in the weather business that flood follows fire. The action of the fire in killing off the vegetation, in baking, kiln drying the landscape a little bit, can hinder the land's ability to absorb rainfall. So if you have a fire, especially if it's in complex mountainous terrain. This is classic in California. It can happen somewhat in Alaska too. You get a wildfire in steep, hilly, or mountainous terrain, rips off all the vegetation off the landscape. Then 6 months later, there's a big rainstorm, and you get a flash flood in that area. So flood can follow fire. That's why you got to know where the burn scars are. Secondly, a fire needs fuel to maintain itself. So if there's an old burn scar left over from a year or two ago, and then another summer later here in Alaska in the interior, it's a big wildfire season. If there's a fire advancing toward an old burn scar, well, guess what? That old burn scar can be tougher terrain for that new fire to get through because there's not as much fuel in that burn scar. So they almost act like a natural fire break. These are a couple of reasons why you need to know where those burn scars are. Alaska Fire Service has limited resources. They want to put their people and their equipment where it does the most good. They need to know, well, this is an area where there's no burn scar. We better put people here because that fire could really run.
So really important for weather forecasters and fire weather forecasters for sure.
Oh yeah.
But then how do weather satellites actually detect those burn scars?
Good question.
Thanks.
Well, let's turn the Wayback Machine to the summer of 2015. That was a very active year. Got a picture here taken up in the White Mountains. This is one of the fires in progress that summer, and if you look real close, you can almost see Frodo throwing the ring into the volcano there. So that's quite the vision. Well, let's look at a visible image. Here we are in Alaska's interior. This is before the fires got out of the cage in early summer of 2015. Let's zoom into the western interior here. Again, this is a weather satellite image of visible light, what the human eye can see. We're into the middle reach of the Yukon Valley there in the western interior, Galena area. And this is just a beautiful visible day. Nothing much going on. It's in early June before the fires really got active. But then in 2015, the fires got loose, especially in that western interior. Here's another image. The same satellite pass as that visible image, but now we're not quite looking at visible light.
Very different.
There's a slight change here. This image incorporates something called the veggie band. 0.86 micron wavelength. The micron's very tiny, but that wavelength responds to vegetation, the chlorophyll. So trees and grasses reflect that part of the electromagnetic spectrum back to the satellite. And so the satellite sees that. When signal comes at that wavelength to the satellite, we know, there's some vegetation growing there. This is great. You can identify coastlines so easily because you go from vegetation to water. Turns out if you have a burn scar, guess what? You burned away the vegetation, so that's going to show up. We're going to do a before, during, and after kind of look here. And so we're looking at before. So in this image, we got a lot of green out there. That's wonderful. Another fun thing about this kind of imagery is you can see down in the Alaska Range in the southeast corner of the image, it's blue. That's glaciers and snow in the mountains. So this is not really what the human eye can see. This is these wavelengths are beyond human vision, but we've made them look certain colors. So the vegetation looks green. Now let's look at that same kind of satellite recipe, but during the fires. This is in July. The fires are loose. You can see the smoke in the middle of the image, the smearing look of the smoke, and then we can see some clouds that are white, icy clouds are blue. So this is in July of 2015. The fires are doing their thing. We're burning up millions of acres. Now let's go to September. The fires are out. The audience has left the theater. You know, the event's over, right? We're done. But guess what? Now look at those brown patches.
Look at that.
All of those places are where the fire has burned away the vegetation. So you can see where the fires were. You can add up these perimeters, get acreage burned and such. And so that's good to know. Now remember, flood follows fire, and these are also natural fire breaks. So you need to know where these guys are. In the course of the 2015 summer season, we went from before with not much burn scar in this area to just a couple months later, we can see so much burn scarring on the landscape. What's interesting too about the satellite and looking at burn scars is you realize that burn scars are the gift that keeps on giving. You can forget that a couple of years ago, maybe there was a fire in a certain area, but the satellite won't forget. So in the summertime, we get wildfires in Alaska, but guess what? In the visible imagery here, we can see the burn scars just a little bit, but they're not as prominent as in that veggie band. But then you can't see them at all if you cover them up with snow, right?
Exactly.
So here's an image from the middle of the winter time, and snow on the ground by this recipe looks blue. Again, these are wavelengths of light that the human eye can't really see. We're getting up into the infrared, near infrared, and the way we've assigned colors is if there's snow on the ground or there's a glacier, it looks blue, kind of intuitive. So this is early April of the following year, 2016. Okay. We're just about to get into breakup. We got a lot of snow on the ground, and now it's all going to melt. And as the snow melts, then you get our final image here. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like a lot of what we saw in September of the previous summer. So this is the spring of the next year. The fires themselves might not have overwintered, they're gone, but the fire scar does. And as the snow melts away, and then you have breakup, and then you have green up, whenever the leaves come out, the grass comes back, except in the burned areas, they're having a tough time because everything got burned off the previous year. So you can see these scars even the next summer, multiple years. It depends on what kind of vegetation there is. You know, some of the tussocky tundra grasses, they'll grow back really quick, but to get a forest to come back, that'll take much longer. So these burn scars, eventually the landscape will fill in the burn scar. It will heal itself, if you want to use that metaphor. But for the next few years, you can still keep track of these on satellite. And again, the reason we want to do that is that the burn scar can facilitate a flood, and it can act like a fire break. So there you are, the
fascinating tools. So if you're a weather satellite and you're looking at my bowl of vegetables here, you might be able to pick out which one's the pea, which one's the tomato, and which one's the carrot, and apply that information precisely to whatever it is you're working on there. That is really fascinating stuff, that we have that capability from so high above the planet Earth, and Alaska for that matter.
Yep, eat your veggies.
Yes, definitely. I think I will. I'm hungry. Thanks so much for joining us again, Eric, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you right here next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis showing fair amount of ice there. In fact, they're extending from Norton Sound over to St. Lawrence Island and west of Nunivak Island, and then lesser ice in the Bristol Bay area. And not much change to tomorrow, and then icing conditions will begin to retreat back to the north and diminish with the incoming southerly winds, with the next system starting on, well, actually late Monday and into the middle of the week. Moving on to coastal water forecasts for the south coast of the Panhandle. Southwest winds 20-25 knots, seas to about 16 feet. Southwest 30 knots. Small craft advisories north coast with 17-foot seas. Lynn Canal southerlies 25 knots, gusts 40 knots, and southeast 25 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait southwest at 15. And then for Monday, pretty light winds over the central and northern inside waters, south to southeast at about 10 knots, 2-foot seas. And for Clarence Strait, northwest at 15 with 3-foot seas. And then along Prince of Wales Island coast, west 20 knots. Central coast, southerlies 20-25 knots. And the north coast, looking at south winds at 25 knots. And for Cook Inlet, Sunday, tomorrow, northeast at 10. But small craft advisories south of the Forelands for northwesterlies at 25 knots, seas at about 5 feet. And pretty brisk west winds there for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, out of the west at 30 knots, 9 to 11-foot seas. Small craft advisories, eastern North Gulf Coast, southwest winds 25 knots, 14-foot seas, Prince William Sound westerlies at 15. Those will increase on Monday there in Prince William Sound, southeast winds coming up to 30 knots, seas building to 7 feet. Full gales along the North Gulf Coast, south 40 knots with 20-25-foot seas, south 40 knots for the Barren Islands with seas around 25 feet. Gale warnings now for southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay, east-northeasterlies, 35 knots, 9 to 10-foot seas, and northern Cook Inlet, northeast at 20 with seas at 5 feet. And for the Kodiak Island area, tomorrow, kind of a pretty uniform wind pattern along and south of the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, all out of the west, 30 knots. seas 10 or 8 to 14 feet. Small craft advisories, Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, southerlies 25 knots, 10-foot seas, west 25 for Bristol Bay. And then for Monday, gales come into the picture, definitely for the Alaska Peninsula, south to southeast 35 to 40 knots, seas Bering Sea side of the peninsula, top side there 9 feet, south side 21 feet, Bristol Bay, southeast 40 knots, 8-foot seas, and Kodiak Island up the east side, southerlies at 40 knots, Shelikof Strait southeast at 30 with 7-foot seas. Fox Islands tomorrow, 40 to 50 knot winds out of the south and southeast, strongest on the Pacific side with the highest seas up to 20 feet. And gale warnings for Adak and Atka, south to southeast 35 to 40 knots. And from Amchitka to Shemya, south to southeast 30 knots, 13 to 18-foot seas. Monday, for the western Aleutians, Shemya, Attu, Kiska, northwest 30 knots, 25-foot seas. Amchitka Island, west 25. And Adak and Atka, southwest 20, 9 to 22-foot seas, quite a range. And for Unmak Island, southerlies 20 to 25 knots. Small craft advisories on Alaska Island, south to southwest at 25 knots. And for the Pribilofs tomorrow, southeast 25 knots, south winds 25 for the Yukon Delta coast, the Kuskokwim Delta coast. North of Nunivak Island along the Yukon Delta coast, winds not bad, east at 15, northwest 15, St. Matthew Island, northeast 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Gales for St. Lawrence Island, the Yukon Delta coast, and the northern Bering Sea, St. Matthew Island, all northeast 40 knots on Monday, 8 to 20-foot seas. Kuskokwim Delta coastline, southeast 40 knots, 11-foot seas. Pribilof south 20, seas 10 feet. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, east at 15, and 20 knots on the central coast. Brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Cape Thompson, east and northeast 25 to 30 knots, and then those fall back to 20 knots from Cape Thompson all the way up to the central coast, eastward, all east at 20 knots to Demarcation Point. Brisk wind advisories from Cape Thompson to Wales for east winds at 25 knots. For tonight again, look for clouds, areas of light snow, fog there anywhere across the north slope in the Arctic coast, but clearing possible there south and southwest of the Brooks Range, Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, and diminishing snow slowly tapering off, lingering snow showers northern Cook Inlet. Next big storm rolls up on Monday with gale and storm force winds.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.